The New York Knicks have fired Tom Thibodeau. Was it the right call, and who's in line to be the next head coach? That's all today on an emergency pod live edition of Locked On NBA. Let's get it.
You are Locked On NBA, your daily NBA podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On NBA. Maybe welcome to Locked On NBA again if you've already watched our episode for today. Thanks for making us your first, second, third listen of the day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm Doug Branson, host of Locked On Hornets and your Shot Clock Sherpa, guiding you through the NBA's biggest stories every day with the help of Locked On's local experts. And I have two of the best with me, as always, from the Locked On Nuggets podcast and senior NBA writer for the Action Network, we've got Matt Moore. And from the Locked On Bulls podcast, we've got Hayes. No time for pleasantries because we have breaking news. Tom Thibodeau fired as head coach of the New York Knicks after 5 seasons. The move comes after the Knicks made their first conference finals appearance in 25 years and the first back-to-back 50-win seasons since the 90s. The Knicks made the playoffs in 4 of Tibbs' 5 seasons, and he was coach of the year in 2021. We've got a statement from Leon Rose of the Knicks, quote, "Our organization is singularly focused on winning a championship for our fans. This pursuit led us to the difficult decision to inform Tom Thibodeau that we've decided to move in another direction. We can't thank Tom enough for pouring his heart and soul into each and every day of being the New York Knicks head coach. He led us not only with class and professionalism for the past 5 seasons, but also to tremendous success on the court." Matt, your reaction to the firing and the timing right after their loss to Indiana in Game 6.
Not surprised at all. I think it's fair after Jenkins got fired and Malone got fired and now Tibbs to be like, just winning doesn't matter. Like winning doesn't matter. And I am sympathetic to coach's views on that. Tibbs, though, to me, like, look, man, you had Karl Anthony Towns and Mikal Bridges, and you were a team that didn't shoot threes. You had the best 2-man combination in the NBA this season to start for 2 months, and then you just didn't go back to it. Take a look at during these timeouts and how those guys were interacting on the bench. OG Anunoby has been mad a lot in all these timeout situations. Mikal Bridges comes out and says, you got to trust the bench a little bit more. Went to Tibbs and talked about it, then talked to the media about it. I think Tibbs is an excellent coach. I think Tibbs gets you 50 wins. Tibbs gets you to the playoffs. But if you're looking to go to the next step, I do think you got to look for the next guy.
Yeah, Tom Thibodeau tends to be a coach that runs his course. Like, he gets there, he teams play hard, they play tough on him, they win a lot of games, but he can't really get over that hump as that guy, and maybe that's because of his inability to adapt to certain things. You already pointed out how, not using your depth, and that there was times this season where, like, I can't remember which one. I think it was Jalen Brunson. It may have been a different guy. I think it was Josh Hart. That was like, not to say that the starters can't handle it, but like, we have some guys that are pretty talented on this bench. Let them get some time and get some opportunity. You look at some of the adjustments that he did, like going to Landry Shamet a little bit too late, things like that. I think that this Knicks team has a lot of talent on it. They're just probably going to need, now they're going to have to get another coach to kind of bring it all together a little bit better.
And like, I'm glad that they didn't. I'm glad that they did this and didn't do the thing that teams always do, which is, we made the conference finals. We're right there. No. You had to come back from down 20 3 times versus the Celtics. You got wiped out by the Indiana Pacers. 0-2. That series was done after the first 2 games. Good for the Knicks for taking a clear eye evaluation to this run and not getting suckered into that win over the Celtics.
ESPN's Tim Bontemps tweeted this: pretty hard to justify firing a coach who won 4 playoff series in 3 years when the Knicks had won a single playoff series in the prior 22 years. Matt, you obviously disagree with that. Hayes, is the justification at least a little bit more difficult here after the playoff success from Tibbs?
Yeah, I mean, it's rough, right? I think you have to make this decision at the right time, and they probably looked at it and looked at, like, Mikal Bridges' contract's up at the end of next year. They got some tough decisions to make, and you want a more clear look at the roster, and I can't blame that. Tibbs had some great success in New York, make no mistake about it. But I think the point that we're getting here is that to get over the top, like, you have to ask yourself, is Tibbs that guy? And he really hasn't shown himself to be.
If you want a guy that's going to make adjustments in a playoff series, it's not him. If you want a guy that's going to use the most out of his roster, it's not him. And I get the idea of like the Knicks, but that's setting the bar at the Knicks' failures over the last 20 years. And Leon Rose wants to set the bar higher. And sometimes the Knicks have a bad habit of setting the bar too high and not working to get the steps there, but they've done the steps along the way. They've made the roster every year better under Leon Rose. And so, like, I don't blame him for looking at this. And I will say this, like, the roster's got to get, I think, worked on too. This isn't just a swap out the coach and you're good. They should be taking a clear-eyed look at this roster and see whether it works. They should be evaluating whether Karl Anthony Towns can really be the center, the second star next to Brunson. They should be looking at all those things. But those are all independent of whether or not Tibbs was the guy. And I think you got to be honest with yourself and say, like, yeah, you won playoff series. Did you feel good about any of them? And I think the answer is probably not many.
All right, we're live on YouTube right now. Hit us up in the comments. Sean12X says this was deserved. We've got a poll up right now. It's 60-40. Was this the right decision by the Knicks in favor of no? This was not the right decision. So vote in the poll. Let us know what you think in the comments. We'll read them a little bit later in the show. So a few more questions on this, and then we'll kind of focus on where they go from here. But when you look at this firing and then you pair that with what you were talking about there with Leon Rose setting the bar higher, they've obviously invested a lot of draft capital into Mikal Bridges. They do the big trade that brings in Karl Anthony Towns. Is this an indication that they built this Knicks team not really in line with what they felt like could be the most successful for Tom Thibodeau, but they just built the best team of talent they could, and then they wanted to see if Tom could coach that talent? Is that a decent line of thinking there, Matt?
I don't know. I think it was more of, Tibbs was a good coach and it really connected him. He was a great coach for last year's Knicks team. That team that was all just like grimy and all hustle and offensive rebounds. And
so this is Cat's fault. Did Cat get Tibbs fired twice?
Yeah, I saw somebody tweet that. That's rough. A little bit. Like, I don't blame Cat for it. I don't think it's Cat's fault. I just think that Tibbs wants different stuff from his guys. And I do think there was some tension there, but I also think that in large part, I don't know who on the roster was like 100% in, right? Like who on the roster was like, yeah, it's Josh Hart, maybe? Well, that's my question, Hayes, is just like, who can you look at and be like, I know that guy still has Tibbs' back?
Yeah, probably Hart is probably definitely the one. Maybe a little bit of Brunson, because Tom Thibodeau is usually really good at getting the most out of point guards. He's done that over his career. Maybe a little bit of that, but I think it's time. Like this roster, to answer Doug's question, like did they build the best roster for Tibbs or the best roster they could and wanted Tibbs to do the best of? I think it has to be they built the best roster that they could. I don't know that this was a roster that really had the identity that you're used to seeing on a Tibbs team. Yeah, they had tough wing defenders, and that's great, but they never really felt like a Tom Thibodeau team as far as what you expect from the defensive side of that. And they're going to need to find some of that defense if they're going to want to go far in the East and take advantage of this gap that's now going to be in the East as well.
Jalen Brunson was asked about Tibbs and his future after Game 6, after they were eliminated in that conference finals. And he said, quote, "Is that a real question right now? You just asked me if I believe he's the right guy. Yes, come on." And then Brunson quickly ended the presser after that. So at least on the record, Jalen had his back.
Hey, and that makes sense because Tibbs wasn't getting in the way of him dribbling the air out of the ball and then throwing himself to the ground to draw free throws. I too would have his back.
Okay, so that's good. That's a good segue because in the next segment, I want to talk about which players should be silently thrilled. No one's going to be out loud thrilled about anytime someone gets fired, but who should be silently thrilled that this move was made, and which players should be a little bit worried about what their role will be moving forward. Plus, what kind of coach should the Knicks hire next? And maybe we'll get some names from Matt and Hayes on who they think should be the next head coach of the New York Knicks. Plus, we'll get to some of your comments on the other side here on Locked On NBA. Today's episode of Locked On NBA is brought to you by Open Phone. If you're running a business, every missed call could be a missed opportunity. Think about it. Last time you had a service emergency, did you wait for a call back? Probably not. That's why you need Open Phone. It's the #1 business phone system that streamlines your customer communication and helps you scale all from an app on your phone or computer. I love that I don't need to carry 2 phones. With Open Phone, I can manage my business calls and my texts from one app, whether I'm at my desk or on the go. My favorite feature is the shared inbox. Your whole team can jump into any conversation without missing a beat. Plus, the AI call transcripts and summaries are game changers for staying on top of follow-ups and customer interactions. Right now, Open Phone is offering our listeners 20% off your first 6 months. Just go to openphone.com/LockedOnNBA. That's openphone.com/LockedOnNBA. And if you're switching from another provider, they will even port your number over for free. Open Phone. No missed calls, no missed customers. More Locked On NBA ahead. Back here on a live edition of Locked On NBA. Thanks for making Locked On NBA your first listen every day. Hayes, if Tom Thibodeau had made more drastic adjustments to the rotation, because that seemed to be the #1 criticism coming from Locked On Knicks, at least. I mean, we played many a clip on this show of them being frustrated that they weren't playing Deuce McBride enough or that they weren't starting Mitchell Robinson before he decided to start Mitchell Robinson. Had he made more drastic changes to the rotation or adjustments in play in the playoffs, even if they had still lost in the Eastern Conference Finals, do you think Tom Thibodeau would still be the coach today?
No, I think it may have made the decision a little bit harder to make, but I still think that you would have come to the same conclusion with this move. Like this is to me, I take this as a move that's aggressive about them taking advantage of how wide open the East could be next year. And they want to try to make sure they're right up there towards the top. I don't think that if you would have made some more aggressive adjustments, that would have changed that too much, unless it ended with them winning the series. But I think that this would have been the outcome, and it felt like it was getting to this place anyway. So I think this is where it would have ended up.
Yeah, I think it's interesting because, okay, on the one hand, you could say, hey, you made the Eastern Conference Finals and you came back 3 times down 20 versus the Celtics. On the other hand, you put yourself down 3 times versus the Celtics and you blew game 1 in horrific fashion. Like, it just depends on your kind of perspective on these types of things. From an adjustment standpoint, I thought Tibbs did some stuff in these playoffs. I want to give him credit here, right? Like, he switches more with Cat in the second round versus the Celtics. Now, you can do that easier because Towns switches well on forwards versus he doesn't do very well versus guards. You saw that in the conference finals. But he did make some adjustments. He did play DeLon Wright and Landry Shamet. But the problem is, like, he only started playing them once Jalen Brunson got in foul trouble. It's like you had to force him into that kind of situation. You didn't really see. I think a good question here is just, do you feel like when you look at this roster, Mikal Bridges, OG Anunoby, Karl Anthony Towns, Jalen Brunson, all this talent, do you feel like they got the most out of them, even with a conference finals appearance, a 3 seed, and a kind of miracle conference finals appearance, which you lose in 6 games after going down 0-2? I can't get there. That's why I think that probably the move was warranted, is you have to feel like there's more meat on the bone for someone to find.
Yeah, that's interesting. Did Leon Rose and company look at that conference finals in just black and white? Like, ooh, they made the conference finals for the first time in 25 odd years. Or did they look at it like, well, Jason Tatum got hurt and the Celtics were weird and there was all these extenuating circumstances? Let's go to the comments. Brett Sadler saying, how can you lose game 1 with a 9-point lead, less than a minute left in the game? Cat missed too many free throws, but it's too bad for Tibbs. And Uni, Michael Malone, the next Knicks coach. And Sean 12X also saying, just hire Mike Malone. Mike Malone, of course, fired from the Denver Nuggets before the Denver Nuggets started their playoff journey. Matt, what do you think? You've got a lot of experience dealing with Mike Malone. Would he make the next great Knicks head coach?
From Queens, very comfortable there. Used to go to the Garden with his dad when he was an assistant coach there. It makes a lot of sense from a cultural fit. He is both hard-nosed like Tibbs, but not as maniacal. Everyone will be like, well, but the Nuggets just played starters. Yeah, they had to. They had literally no bench. They had nobody for him to play. If he's got guys to play, he'll play a bench. You can reinvigorate the offense, I think, a little bit using more dribble handoff action. He'll take some of the stuff that he learned as coach of the Nuggets, the other assistants honestly helped him install. But he's a guy that has coached a top 5 offense every single year, and it's like, well, yeah, but he had Nikola Jokic. Okay, but like we've seen really good offensive players not have top 5 offenses. He also went over his win total every single year, won a title, which Tibbs never has. I think it's a pretty good option. But the biggest reason is he is repped by CAA. Also, another name on that list that also does that is repped by CAA, Monty Williams. So keep an eye out for those 2 names as far as those conversations keep going as far as who they're going to replace him. I think Malone would be an excellent option for them. I think he might be able to get the most out of Cat and get those guys to come together in the right way.
That was where my first thought went when this news dropped, is Mike Malone. He makes so much sense for what this Knicks team, where they're at. They need somebody who's going to be able to come in, instill a system, get the best out of the guys they have on the roster, and I think Mike Malone is the guy to do that. The championship experience, being from New York, everything, it's almost perfect. And now that doesn't mean that it's going to happen, but I think Mike Malone is almost tailor-made to come into this New York situation and make the most out of what they have here. He's going to get the best out of guys. He's going to draw up a system that I think could take advantage of Karl-Anthony Towns and Jalen Brunson offensively the most. Defensively, still got some things to figure out there, but I think Mike Malone is the perfect choice here for the New York Knicks.
I wonder if the speed of this announcement plays into the coaching search at all. We know Johnny Bryant used to be on the Knicks bench, and he's one of the 2 finalists for the Suns job. If they wanted to make a sneak run at him, that it could be a situation. What kind of head coach? Just taking the names and maybe the cultural fit out of it, just like from a strategic standpoint, knowing, let's just assume the roster is generally what it's going to be under the new head coach. What kind of head coach should they be seeking out? Because like oftentimes there can be a reaction to the previous head coach, and then sometimes you stick with sort of a similar philosophy. So Matt, what do you think? What kind of head coach should the Knicks seek out for this roster?
I mean, I think you want a coach with championship experience who's got respect of veterans, right? Like, this is a team ready to win now, and these guys are all in the middle of their careers. So you don't want somebody who's like going to try and build up from the beginning. You don't want somebody who's going to try and really invigorate the offense with a bunch of really, different and new and exciting ideas, like a young assistant. You don't want to go that route because, like, what works. Like, they're still going to be like, why are we making this complicated? Let's just run pick and roll with Jalen. So you need somebody who's both familiar, but also is willing to make tweaks around the edges. You need somebody who's got that championship experience, or at least has competed at a high level. You need that kind of an outlook rather than any sort of approach, I think, of like a younger guy. I think Bryant's been around a while. He's a well-respected assistant coach. I'm not sure you want somebody who doesn't have experience coaching a finals game, though, Hayes. Like, I think you do want to have guys that have been in those big games and know how to manage big-time series. I think that's important for them.
Yeah, I think that's important, and that's why Mike Malone makes a lot of sense for them. I think you do want somebody who's gotten over the hump or gotten close to getting over the hump, because you have a team that's ready to compete now. You don't have a year, you don't have 2 years, you don't have that to try to get it together. You want somebody who's going to come in and be able to put this team in a place that you feel is the closest to coming out of the East next year instead of just making it to the NBA Finals. So I think a guy like Mike Malone makes the most sense there. Maybe you can convince yourself to Memphis's former head coach, but I think I'm zeroed in on Mike Malone personally if I'm the New York Knicks.
All right, heading back to the comments, Uni says, will Rick Brunson stay on as assistant coach? Very serious dude comments, isn't it the job of a coach to tell a player to stop dribbling the air out of the ball? And an update on our poll, 53% say this was not the right decision by the New York Knicks, so still very close, getting closer than it was earlier in the show. Back to the question that Uni asked, Hayes, will Rick Brunson stay on as assistant coach? Is this not only an opportunity to change the head coach, but maybe make a little bit of a separation there between management coach and star player?
Yeah, maybe. And maybe that's what they need. I don't know that Rick Brunson is, necessarily been an issue there, but you want whoever you hire as the head coach to be able to pick their whole staff. And so if you want to keep on Rick Brunson, great. If not, it wouldn't stop me from hiring a coach if I'm the Knicks.
I mean, Brunson's not going. These two questions are related. Rick Brunson's not going anywhere because they're committed to Jalen. That's their guy. And the question of, isn't it a coach's job to get him to stop dribbling the air out of the ball? No, if you want that, you should go to college, because Jalen Brunson makes like 6 times what any coach in the NBA makes per year.
Good point.
And gets all the control and say. Like, that is not up to him. There's a reason why so often these superstar players wind up in this spot, and you're like, I wonder why they're doing that. That coach seems so smart. And that's not the coach making that decision. It's the superstar. That's how that works in the NBA.
All right, Matt, which parts of this roster should be encouraged that there will be a change at the top, a change in strategy? And are there any players you think should be worried about their potential role or even potential future with the Knicks if they hire a certain type of head coach?
I think OG Anunoby is probably the one that's going to benefit the most. He was, I think, criminally underused with how much he's able to bring to the table. So even if Brunson is still going to be Brunson, a new coach will probably bring in mechanisms maybe to use OG more and more effectively. I think he's probably the guy that benefits the most from this. Mikal maybe as well, because Mikal's been a really good player, but he's been a hard one to kind of get the most out of since he left Phoenix. And then I think the guy that's probably the most at risk here is probably Josh Hart, because he had a bad conference finals, got a lot of miles on him thanks to Tibbs. He was Tibbs' guy, I think, the most. And that, to me, he's probably the guy that probably suffers from this move the most is Josh Hart.
What do you think, guys?
No, I agree with that. I think Josh Hart probably, like, I don't know if he suffers the most, mainly because, like, hopefully he's not going to have to be ran into the ground, and he may even be more impactful if you don't have to run him that many minutes. But OG Anunoby is definitely one that could benefit from it. I even think that Karl Anthony Towns, depending on who the coach is, can be utilized a little bit more. Maybe you can get back to that Jalen Brunson and Karl Anthony Towns pick and roll actually being a threat for you, for a coach that can scheme the rest around them a little bit better. So I think offensively, a lot of people have room to benefit from it. But Josh Hart is the one that I'm looking at, like, okay, what are you going to be minimized by another coach? Not every coach is going to be able to use Josh Hart the way that Tom Thibodeau used him.
Yeah,
we've seen the trend. Go ahead, Matt. You got something?
You're good.
Okay. We've seen the trend around the NBA of hiring young head coaches, hiring top assistants from good programs. Is there a place for Tom Thibodeau in the league in terms of a future job? Will he have to take some time away, or do you think that there's a team right now that would look at his success in New York and say, no, that we could use some of that? I
think there'll always be a job for Tom Thibodeau. Like he's probably going to take a year off. I don't know if he's going to get right back into coaching, but there's always going to be, like, he's a very creative defensive mind. You look at what he did when he was on the bench of Doc Rivers. I think that alone would get him a job as an assistant if he wanted to accept that. If he wants to wait to become a head coach again, he may have to wait a year. But I could see a team that definitely is going to give Tom Thibodeau another opportunity.
Tibbs in Milwaukee with Giannis? Okay, all right.
Oh boy. It does need to be a team that's, like, ready to compete now, right? Like, I don't think he wants to go back to trying to build up a team from the bottom. So I think that's probably going to have to be a team that's, like, ready right now. And there's not a lot of those, I don't think, right now, even with as wide open as the East is.
Okay, final thing here before we send it off and hand it off to Locked On NBA Game Night later tonight for their thoughts. The legacy of Tom Thibodeau, if this is the last opportunity we get to see him as a head coach, what will be the lasting legacy of Tibbs? Hayes, kick us off.
I mean, Tibbs is a really, really good coach. I think that's going to be his legacy. He's a guy that's definitely a floor raiser. I don't know how much he raises ceilings everywhere he goes, but he's a guy that's had success. You look at what he did in Chicago, not necessarily as much success in Milwaukee, but then coming over here to New York, like, he's had more success as far as regular season success than people give him credit for. He was never able to get over the hump as a head coach at this point, in the playoffs, but he's a guy that he's just a damn good coach. And I think there's always going to be spots for guys like that. People who are just good coaches and that come in and can raise your floor.
He's a lifer, man. I have so much respect for these guys. He's the guy that sleeps in the office, literally. He's the guy that puts in all the hours, that goes over absolutely everything. And the fact that his answers were so often like, I'll just play my star players more, it was frustrating, but also, like, he did care. Like, he played those guys more because he wanted to win every game. Relentless competitor. He's going to be known for the hoarse voice and always looking a little befuddled and a little sad, but also, like, an incredible coach for getting the most out of his guys in the brutal NBA regular season.
That's right. Madison Square Garden will be quieter next season. I think that's a guarantee.
That's for sure.
All right. Thank you for checking us out here on Locked On NBA. If you like what you heard, make sure you're subscribed to Locked On NBA wherever you get your podcasts. Locked On NBA Game Night. They're recapping every finals game every night on this feed. Make sure you're checking out Locked On NBA Big Board for all of your draft analysis from Rafael Barlow. Until next time, be kind to each other, and we'll see you again here on Locked On NBA.